In a world marked by rapid technological innovation, unprecedented access to information, and daily demands that challenge our capacity to reason, many seek a guiding light to navigate the depths of thought and the heights of action. Centuries ago, such a light emerged in the ancient world, a beacon that continues to illuminate our modern lives. That beacon is Aristotle, a figure whose intellect, ethical rigor, and unwavering pursuit of knowledge have profoundly shaped the trajectory of Western thought. Aristotle's legacy is not solely in the intricate treatises or the profound metaphysical discourses he has left behind. Rather, it is in the vitality and applicability of his thought, a structured way of approaching truth, understanding virtue, and discerning the path to happiness and fulfillment. He invites us to think with clarity, to observe with intensity, and to act with integrity. His philosophy, deeply rooted in observation, ethics, reason, and practical wisdom, is as relevant today as it was over 2 millennia ago. The aim of this book is ambitious but practical, to unfold Aristotle's intellectual framework and demonstrate, step by step, how his ancient wisdom can be applied to sculpt a rational, balanced, and meaningful modern life. Each chapter examines an essential element of Aristotelian philosophy, translating complex doctrines into accessible and actionable insights. We begin by encountering Aristotle as a man and thinker, a student, a teacher, and an explorer of the world's deepest secrets. From his understanding of happiness as eudaimonia to his articulation of reason as the highest human virtue, and from his advocacy of the golden mean to his meticulous explorations of logic and ethics, Aristotle offers a template for living with depth, balance, and discernment. You will learn not only about Aristotle's ideas, but also how to think as he did, systematically, ethically, and rationally. Through his eyes, observation becomes a path to understanding. Logic provides clarity in the chaos, and ethical reasoning transforms daily choices into acts of virtue. Aristotle's thinking demands more than intellectual engagement. It calls for transformation, for the cultivation of habits that align thought and action toward the flourishing of self and society. This journey is neither abstract nor detached from real life. As readers, you will discover ways to apply Aristotle's methods to contemporary challenges, be it in personal decision-making, workplace dilemmas, or the pursuit of a good and rational life. Through reflection, practice, and a commitment to rational inquiry, Aristotle's wisdom can help each of us become architects of our own flourishing. As we embark together on this philosophical odyssey, let Aristotle's insights become an enduring companion, guiding you toward clarity, virtue, and a life well thought out and well lived. Chapter 1. The Philosopher's Path. Who was Aristotle? It is difficult to overstate Aristotle's influence on the foundations of Western philosophy and science. Born in 384 BCE in Stagira, a small town in northern Greece, Aristotle entered the world during a time of intellectual ferment, profound political change, and vibrant cultural achievement. In the crucible of this world, his character and worldview were forged. Understanding the man behind the ideas is essential to appreciating both the spirit and the substance of his thought. Aristotle's early years were marked by personal loss and significant opportunity. His father, Nicomachus, served as the court physician to King Amyntas of Macedon, instilling in young Aristotle a curiosity about the natural world and an appreciation for empirical investigation. However, by the age of 10, Aristotle was orphaned, which perhaps fueled his relentless pursuit of knowledge and belonging throughout his life. At 17, Aristotle journeyed to Athens, the intellectual epicenter of the ancient world, and enrolled in Plato's academy. For nearly 2 decades, he absorbed the teachings of his illustrious mentor, Plato, while simultaneously charting his own philosophical course. Although he admired Plato's commitment to metaphysical forms, Aristotle diverged sharply, emphasizing empirical observation and practical experience over purely abstract speculation. This methodological difference would later revolutionize both philosophy and scientific inquiry. After Plato's death, Aristotle left Athens, embarking on a period of travel and study across the Greek world. He took on roles as a tutor, most notably to Alexander the Great, whose conquests would later spread Greek culture into new realms. These years of intellectual ferment, crossing cultural, political, and disciplinary boundaries, deepened Aristotle's insights not only into philosophy and science, but also politics, ethics, and human nature itself. Aristotle's return to Athens marked the beginning of his greatest intellectual legacy. Founding the Lyceum, he assembled a community of scholars known as the Peripatetics, who pursued knowledge through dialogue, observation, and classification. The Lyceum's comprehensive curriculum covered logic, physics, metaphysics, biology, psychology, politics, rhetoric, and ethics, making Aristotle one of the most polymathic thinkers in history. Equally remarkable was Aristotle's method, systematic, observational, and critical. He believed that philosophy began in wonder, and that every phenomenon, no matter how humble, deserved scrutiny and explanation. He classified plants and animals, dissected forms of government, examined emotions, and contemplated the foundations of logic and morality. In doing so, he pioneered an approach that balanced rational abstraction with empirical investigation. Aristotle's contributions extend not only to what he taught, but also to how he taught. His writings, often composed in lecture notes and dialogues, encourage readers to follow the path of rational inquiry, engaging with the world as active participants rather than passive recipients of doctrine. His philosophical ethos was one of examining life, asking questions, and allowing reason to guide both belief and action. Today, Aristotle's influence endures not merely in academic circles, but in the structure of rational thought itself. His insistence on careful observation, logical analysis, and ethical purpose provides a blueprint for thinkers and leaders alike. As we seek to think like Aristotle, we must first encounter him as a man who navigated uncertainty, grappled with tension between tradition and innovation, and ultimately blazed trails that continue to shape our understanding of what it means to live a rational and meaningful life. In the chapters that follow, we shall move from this contextual foundation into Aristotle's core philosophical convictions, poised to learn not only the content, but also the method of his inquiry, a method that endures as a testament to the enduring power of reason and the pursuit of wisdom. Chapter 2. The Pursuit of Eudaimonia, the True Meaning of Happiness. To truly think like Aristotle, we must understand his ultimate aim for human life, the pursuit of eudaimonia. Often translated as happiness, eudaimonia in Aristotle's philosophy encompasses far more than mere pleasure or transient feelings of well-being. It's about human flourishing, the fulfillment of our potential, the realization of our highest virtues, and the attainment of a life lived in accordance with reason. Aristotle begins his Nicomachean Ethics with a foundational question: what is the highest good for human beings? He contends that every action and pursuit aims at some good. However, there must be an ultimate aim, an intrinsic good that is desirable in itself and for which other goods are sought. This, Aristotle concludes, is eudaimonia, complete, self-sufficient, and attainable by living the right sort of life. Unlike modern notions of happiness based on fleeting satisfaction or subjective states, Aristotle's concept is robust, objective, and holistic. Eudaimonia is not given by fortune or external circumstances, but cultivated through activity, specifically rational activity in accordance with virtue. Thus, to seek eudaimonia is to seek to actualize the qualities that make us distinctly human: our capacity for reason, our practice of virtue, and our engagement with life's moral challenges. Aristotle enumerates the various facets of a flourishing life. First, it is not a passive state but an active process, an activity of the soul in accordance with excellence. Virtue is the means by which individuals align their actions with their rational nature, developing both moral and intellectual virtues. Moral virtues, like courage or temperance, are cultivated through habit and deliberate choice, while intellectual virtues, such as wisdom and understanding, are developed through teaching, experience, and reflection. Integral to eudaimonia is the exercise of practical wisdom, phronesis, which enables individuals to navigate the complexities of life with discernment and balance. Eudaimonia is not attainable in isolation, but through a life lived in community, characterized by just actions, deep friendships, and meaningful contributions to the common good. Importantly, Aristotle acknowledges the role of external goods, health, friendship, and certain material necessities, which, though subordinate to virtue, can enhance the pursuit of a flourishing life. He does not advocate withdrawal from the world, but rather wise participation in its affairs. In sum, Aristotle's vision of happiness is demanding yet empowering. It requires effort, reflection, and ongoing self-improvement. It challenges us not simply to feel good, but to be good, not to seek comfort, but to seek excellence in thought, character, and relation with others. To pursue eudaimonia, then, is to commit oneself to a path of lifelong growth, grounding each step in reason and virtue. In a world often preoccupied with ephemeral rewards and individual gratification, Aristotle's account restores depth and purpose to the question of what makes life truly worth living. Chapter 3. Reason as the highest virtue. Aristotle's identification of reason as the crowning virtue of humanity stands as a central pillar of his philosophical system. Unlike other living beings, Aristotle argued, human nature is distinguished by logos, reason, the capacity for rational thought, deliberation, and the comprehension of universal truths. For Aristotle, living well depends fundamentally on the development and exercise of this unique faculty. To grasp the significance of reason, we must consider Aristotle's theory of the soul, psyche. He delineates the soul into various faculties, corresponding to different forms of life: nutrition for plants, sensation for animals, and reason for human beings. The rational part of the soul is thus seen not as an optional attribute, but as our defining essence. Fulfilling our nature requires the cultivation of reason in every aspect of life. Aristotle distinguishes between two kinds of reason: theoretical and practical. Theoretical reason concerns itself with immutable truths, mathematics, metaphysics, and the first principles of nature. Practical reason, on the other hand, is the governing principle of action, guiding choices, desires, and ethical behavior. According to Aristotle, a well-lived life integrates both. The contemplative life enriches understanding, and the practical life ensures wisdom, translates into virtuous action. Reason is the lens through which we make sense of experience. It enables critical inquiry, the examination of beliefs, and the refinement of judgment. It provides the foundation for meaningful self-determination. Aristotle believed that by acting in accordance with reason, we transform instinct into virtue, habit into excellence, and potentiality into actuality. Moreover, reason is the architect of virtue. While emotions, desires, and appetites are inevitable parts of the human condition, Aristotle contends that reason ought to regulate them. It is through rational deliberation that we discern the intermediate or mean in matters of conduct, weighing circumstances and avoiding excess or deficiency, a theme that finds its fullest expression in the doctrine of the golden mean. Virtue, Aristotle maintains, is inseparable from reason. Moral virtues exist in the character and are formed by repeatedly choosing the rational course until virtuous behavior becomes second nature. Intellectual virtues, meanwhile, are honed through study and reflection, fostering wisdom, understanding, and sound judgment. Both forms of virtue presuppose a commitment to rational self-examination. Central to Aristotle's view is the conviction that reason is not just a means to happiness, but its very essence. The highest form of human life, the truly excellent life, is one devoted to reasoned activity, contemplation, and self-mastery. These are the hallmarks of eudaimonia and the attributes that distinguish those who live according to their true nature. In our contemporary context, Aristotle's veneration of reason serves as a timeless corrective to impulsivity, prejudice, and the abdication of personal responsibility. It reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment are not bestowed by fortune, but achieved through the continuous cultivation of our rational capacities. As we proceed, we will witness how this commitment to reason provides the necessary compass for navigating the complexities of ethics, relationships, and self-realization. Chapter 4, The Golden Mean. Finding balance in all things. Among Aristotle's most enduring insights is the doctrine of the golden mean, the idea that moral virtue resides in the equilibrium between excess and deficiency. This principle, ingeniously simple yet profound, affirms that to live rightly is to achieve balance in the manifold aspects of character and conduct. According to Aristotle, virtues are not innate, but developed through habit and practice. Each virtue is conceived as the mean between two extremes, both of which are vices. Courage, for example, is the mean between recklessness, excess, and cowardice, deficiency. Generosity lies between prodigality and stinginess. Temperance stands between indulgence and insensibility. The mean, however, is not a fixed point, but is relative to each individual and circumstance, a function of practical wisdom. The golden mean emphasizes moderation and self-mastery. It cautions against the dangers of both overindulgence and suppression, advocating for a deliberate calibration of impulses, emotions, and actions. Such discipline is not ascetic. Rather, it seeks to channel our energies constructively, ensuring that our responses are appropriate to context and conducive to well-being. What distinguishes Aristotle's account is its practicality. The golden mean is neither abstract nor dogmatic. It requires careful attention to the particulars of each situation, the context, the people involved, the stakes at hand. It calls for continuous self-examination, humility, and adaptability. The virtuous person is not simply one who follows rules, but one who acts with discernment, weighing alternatives and anticipating consequences. The application of the golden mean extends beyond ethics into the broader domain of life. In our age, where extremes are often valorized, whether in ambition, consumption, or opinion, Aristotle's advocacy of balance remains crucial. It urges us to find harmony between work and leisure, freedom and responsibility, assertiveness and empathy. Virtue, then, is not a matter of denying desires, but of harmonizing them with reason. The golden mean is the embodiment of practical wisdom, the capacity to steer a steady course between the Scylla of excess and the Charybdis of deficiency. This balanced approach cultivates not only individual character, but also social harmony. As moderation fosters trust, cooperation, and mutual respect, Aristotle's doctrine demands that we investigate our own tendencies and adjust our habits accordingly. It recognizes the diversity of human experience, allowing for flexibility while upholding the ideal of rational moderation. To embrace the golden mean is to embark on a lifelong journey of self-regulation, growth, and ethical refinement. By internalizing the wisdom of the golden mean, we not only refine our personal character, but also contribute to a more balanced and humane society. Aristotle's insight, rooted in the realities of human nature, remains a timeless guide for navigating the intricacies of moral life, encouraging us to seek not extremes, but the equilibrium where virtue resides. Chapter 5. The Power of Observation, Learning from the World Around You. One of Aristotle's most distinctive contributions to philosophy and science was his commitment to empirical observation. Unlike many of his contemporaries who preferred speculation or reliance on myth, Aristotle championed a methodical engagement with the world, the careful, systematic examination of nature, society, and the self. For Aristotle, observation was not passive but active, initiating a process of inquiry that lay at the heart of intellectual and practical excellence. Aristotle's works abound with accounts of the natural world, the classification of plants and animals, observations about meteorology and astronomy, and inquiries into the physical properties of matter. His approach was to start with phenomena, the things immediately given to experience, and then to ascend through careful reasoning to universal principles. This bottom-up method contrasted with Plato's idealism and established Aristotle as an early pioneer of scientific inquiry. The power of observation for Aristotle extends beyond natural science. In ethics, politics, and psychology, he relies on attentive study of actual behaviors and existing customs to inform normative conclusions about virtue and the good life. He recognizes that wisdom emerges from an honest encounter with reality, not from ignoring or distorting it to fit preconceived ideas. Observation is thus both a source of knowledge and a discipline of attention. Aristotle believed that perception, aesthesis, is the starting point for all human learning. Before we can theorize, analyze, or judge, we must see. Developing this capacity involves cultivating mindfulness, curiosity, and openness to surprise. It is through observation that we begin to recognize patterns, discern causes, and understand the diversity and unity of the world. Moreover, Aristotle's approach bridges theory and practice. His ethical insights are grounded in observation of moral exemplars, people whose conduct embodies virtue. In politics, his analysis of constitutions was informed by studying actual city-states, not merely inventing ideal forms. Across all domains, Aristotle urges us to honor the evidence of experience while subjecting it to rational critique. In our era, saturated with information yet plagued by distraction and superficiality, the Aristotelian commitment to observation is more vital than ever. Genuine learning depends on disciplined attention, on sustained engagement with complexity, difference, and ambiguity. Observation teaches us humility before the richness of reality and patience in concluding. To think like Aristotle requires that we be both scientists and philosophers in our everyday lives, attentive to concrete details, yet always probing for deeper reasons and connections. The practice of observation is a form of respect for the world, for others, and for oneself. It grounds us in the real, equips us for rational judgment, and ensures that our understanding arises not from fantasy, but from a deep engagement with life's manifold realities. Ultimately, Aristotle's legacy reminds us that wisdom begins in wonder and blossoms through observation. By fostering this capacity, we not only become more knowledgeable, but also more attuned to the beauty, order, and moral possibility inherent in the world around us. Chapter 6: Logic and Clarity, the Foundation of Rational Thought. Aristotle's enduring contribution to the history of thought is perhaps most evident in his development of logic. Often called the father of logic, Aristotle created the first systematic study of correct reasoning, laying foundational principles that continue to shape disciplines ranging from mathematics to law. For Aristotle, logic is not a dry technicality, but the very bedrock of rational inquiry, the means by which we distinguish truth from falsehood, clarity from confusion. Aristotle's logical works, collectively known as the Organon, introduce a variety of critical concepts: the syllogism, categories of being, rules of definition, and principles of non-contradiction. Central among these is the syllogism, a logical argument consisting of premises and a conclusion, structured so that if the premises are true, the conclusion necessarily follows. This method equips us to test arguments, detect fallacies, and ensure intellectual rigor. Logic, according to Aristotle, serves two primary functions. It clarifies our thinking and disciplines our expression. Clarity involves distinguishing terms, defining concepts precisely, and recognizing the structure of arguments. This precision guards against ambiguity, a source in Aristotle's analysis of many philosophical and practical errors. Arguments become tools of persuasion and discovery only to the extent that they are internally coherent and explicitly justified. The pursuit of clarity extends beyond syllogistic reasoning. Aristotle identifies various kinds of fallacious reasoning and advises vigilance against assumptions, equivocation, and hasty generalization. Logic is a safeguard against the passions, biases, and rhetorical manipulation that so easily cloud judgment. By developing logical acumen, we train ourselves in intellectual honesty, fairness, and humility before the evidence. Crucially, Aristotle's logic is inseparable from his ethics. Clear thinking supports ethical decision-making. It enables us to identify the relevant facts, weigh competing values, and anticipate outcomes. A logical mind is not a merely abstract entity, but one engaged in the practical affairs of life, seeking sound solutions rather than clever rationalizations. Today, as public discourse and private reflection are often undermined by misinformation and bias, Aristotle's insistence on logic and clarity offers a timeless remedy. An education in logic is an education in self-discipline, an apprenticeship to reason that undergirds all other forms of inquiry. To think like Aristotle is to demand more from our minds, to hold ourselves accountable to the standards of coherence, justification, and lucidity. Logic, in this view, is both a skill to be learned and a virtue to be cultivated. A habit of mind that tolerates no shortcuts, requires continuous practice, and yields a durable freedom from confusion and self-deception. As we deepen our understanding of Aristotle's logic, we recognize it not as a relic of antiquity, but as a living resource, a set of intellectual tools to bring order to our thinking, resolve the puzzles of experience, and chart a path toward truth and rational flourishing. Chapter 7: Ethics in Action, Doing What is Right, Not What is Easy. Aristotle's ethical philosophy centers on the question, how should we live? He believed that moral excellence was not merely an abstract ideal, but an achievable practice shaped through habitual action. Ethics, for Aristotle, is not detached speculation. It is a guide for living well in a world fraught with complexity. One of the cornerstones of Aristotelian ethics is the doctrine of the mean. Virtue, in Aristotle's view, lies in finding the moderate path between extremes of excess and deficiency. Courage, for example, stands between rashness and cowardice. Generosity avoids both prodigality and stinginess. This balanced approach requires not only insight, but active engagement with our choices and circumstances. True ethical behavior demands more than simply knowing what is right. It also demands the fortitude to choose the right action, especially when faced with adversity. Aristotle recognized that it is far easier to succumb to convenience or self-interest than to pursue the burdensome path of virtue. Doing what is right often involves sacrifice, discomfort, or challenge. The virtuous person distinguishes themselves by their willingness to endure hardship in the pursuit of justice, honesty, and equity. Such individuals shape their character through disciplined action, forging habits that eventually make virtue a natural part of their lives. Central to acting ethically is the process of moral deliberation. Aristotle emphasized that virtuous actions are chosen knowingly and intentionally. They arise from a well-formed character and deep understanding. A person cannot be truly virtuous by accident or under compulsion. Virtue must be the fruit of conscious choice and reflection. This means cultivating the intellectual capacities to recognize the morally salient features of a situation and the emotional strength to act in accordance with one's judgments. Furthermore, Aristotle warned against the dangers of moral complacency. He admonished those who measure goodness by the ease of their actions, for ease frequently signals the path of least resistance, not the route of true character development. To act ethically is to be vigilant against our own rationalizations and excuses. Aristotle called this active process practice, likening moral virtue to a skill or art. It is perfected only through repetition and mindful effort. Ethics for Aristotle is also deeply social. Our actions, he argued, impact not only ourselves but the entire community. The pursuit of virtue is entwined with the well-being of others. The just person contributes to the flourishing of society, not only in bold acts of moral courage, but also in the quiet, day-to-day choices that support the common good. In this way, individual virtue finds its fullest expression in service to others, reinforcing the fabric of communal life. In the final analysis, doing what is right, not what is easy, is the distinguishing mark of ethical maturity. It requires self-control, wisdom, and the persistent will to rise above base impulses and fleeting temptations. By embracing this challenge, each person shapes their character, transforms their relationships, and elevates their society. Aristotle's enduring legacy invites us to pursue this path, not merely for our own fulfillment, but for the good of all. Chapter 8. The Art of Deliberation. Thinking before acting. At the heart of Aristotle's philosophy lies an unwavering devotion to reasoned deliberation. In his view, human beings flourish not by instinct alone, but by cultivating the capacity for thoughtful reflection prior to action. The art of deliberation is the mark of rationality, separating the wise from the rash and the prudent from the impulsive. Aristotle delineated the process of deliberation as a gradual, methodical inquiry into the nature of events and choices. He emphasized that proper action stems from understanding, not mere reaction. The process begins with the recognition of a situation requiring judgment. The agent examines the available options, evaluates the potential outcomes, and considers the ethical dimensions involved. This reflective pause is essential, for it allows one to weigh the evidence, anticipate consequences, and avoid the pitfalls of hurried decisions. Integral to Aristotle's conception is the notion of practical wisdom, or phronesis. Practical wisdom is distinct from theoretical knowledge. It is the skill of applying general principles to the particulars of everyday life. Those endowed with phronesis are adept at recognizing nuance, contextualizing dilemmas, and discerning the right course amid uncertainty. For Aristotle, this quality is not innate, but honed through experience, education, and habituation. Deliberation for Aristotle is not an isolated activity. It is a dialogical process. He advocated seeking counsel, sharing perspectives, and engaging with others in thoughtful discussion. Through conversation, individuals clarify their beliefs, uncover blind spots, and illuminate the range of possibilities before them. Consequently, group deliberation nurtures collective wisdom and guards against the tyranny of personal bias. In his ethical writings, Aristotle asserts that the absence of deliberation often leads to error, irresponsibility, and regret. The unexamined impulse is prone to passion and prejudice, whereas the disciplined mind exercises restraint, selecting actions that harmonize with moral virtue and rational purpose. Deliberation thus functions as a safeguard, narrowing the gap between intention and outcome. However, Aristotle also cautions against excessive hesitancy. While reflective judgment is essential, indecision undermines action and paralyzes resolve. The virtuous person strikes a balance. They reflect sufficiently to secure the best course, then act with confidence once reason has spoken. Deliberation is not an end in itself, but a means to informed, effective agency. Through deliberation, individuals cultivate the intellectual virtues that underpin sound judgment. These virtues, prudence, understanding, and foresight, enable one to navigate life's complexities with grace and integrity. The habit of thinking before acting gradually transforms character, embedding wisdom into the fabric of daily existence. In modern times, faced with rapid technological change and an overwhelming influx of information, the art of deliberation is more vital than ever. Aristotle's teachings urge us to slow down, engage our faculties, and exercise true autonomy over our choices. By mastering the discipline of deliberation, we enhance our effectiveness, deepen our self-knowledge, and ultimately secure the good life desired by all. Chapter 9. Friendship and Virtue, the Bonds that Build Character. In Aristotle's ethical framework, friendship occupies a privileged position as both an essential component of human happiness and a powerful engine for moral development. Unlike the fleeting connections that often characterize modern social life, Aristotelian friendship is rooted in virtue, mutual respect, and shared purpose. Aristotle distinguishes three kinds of friendship: those based on utility, pleasure, and virtue. Friendships of utility arise when individuals associate for mutual benefit. Business partnerships, for example, or alliances forged out of necessity. Friendships of pleasure, though more intimate, are centered around enjoyment and entertainment. While these relationships can foster camaraderie, Aristotle asserts that they lack the stability and depth required for genuine character growth. Friendships grounded in virtue, by contrast, are the highest form. In these unions, each party values the other for their excellence and moral qualities, not merely for transient gain or enjoyment. Such friendships are enduring, as they are built upon a foundation of shared values and joint commitment to the good. For Aristotle, friendship serves as a mirror for personal development. Within its bonds, individuals test their convictions, refine their virtues, and receive gentle correction. Friends encourage each other to aim higher, to embody courage, honesty, generosity, and justice. Through honest criticism and steadfast support, friends foster growth, helping one another to actualize their best selves. Moreover, Aristotelian friendship nurtures empathy and understanding. It compels individuals to transcend selfish interests, to consider the needs and perspectives of others. This capacity for other regard is essential to the formation of ethical character. The truly virtuous person does not live in isolation, but is sustained by the intricate web of relationships cultivated over time. Aristotle insists that friendship is indispensable to happiness, or eudaimonia. No amount of wealth, fame, or success can substitute for the warmth and fulfillment offered by genuine companionship. The shared pursuit of excellence deepens life's meaning, rendering joy sweeter and adversity lighter. Friends serve as confidants, collaborators, and co-aspirants in the quest for virtue. Yet Aristotle warns that virtuous friendship requires discernment. Not all associations are healthy or elevating. Individuals must choose their companions wisely, seeking those who inspire moral fortitude and intellectual curiosity. In turn, one must strive to embody the very qualities one desires in others, thus attracting the friendships capable of shaping character. In the community, friendship extends its transformative power outward. As networks of virtuous relationships proliferate, they generate a culture of trust, cooperation, and civic engagement. Aristotle believed that the flourishing of society depends upon these bonds, which bridge personal ambition and the common good. In the final analysis, friendship and virtue are intimately connected. The bonds forged in pursuit of ethical excellence become the crucible within which character is formed and sustained. Aristotle's vision challenges us to cultivate friendships of depth and integrity, thereby building the inner resources required for a life well lived. Chapter 10. The Role of Education in the Good Life. Education, according to Aristotle, is not merely the transmission of factual knowledge or vocational skills. It is the lifelong cultivation of reason, virtue, and character. To achieve the good life, he argued, individuals must engage in an educational process that extends beyond the classroom, shaping not just minds, but entire personalities. From his earliest works, Aristotle emphasized the transformative potential of education. He believed that the purpose of learning was to enable individuals to function as rational, ethical beings, capable of making wise decisions and contributing meaningfully to society. Education instills the intellectual and moral habits essential for excellence. It is the soil in which seeds of virtue germinate and flourish. Integral to Aristotelian education is the harmonization of rational and emotional faculties. Aristotle insisted that true education teaches not only how to think clearly, but also how to feel appropriately, to experience empathy, restraint, and compassion. Inculcating virtue requires training both the passions and the intellect, encouraging students to aspire toward noble ideals while checking destructive impulses. Aristotle advocated for a comprehensive curriculum, encompassing the arts, sciences, logic, ethics, and politics. He regarded the study of philosophy as paramount, for it exposes the learner to the fundamental questions of existence and meaning. Mathematics, rhetoric, and history likewise serve as vehicles for expanding reason and contextual understanding. This broad spectrum of knowledge prepares individuals for the demands of civic life, nurturing informed citizens capable of wise self-governance. Central to Aristotle's view is the role of education in fostering autonomy. The educated person, he posited, possesses the ability to inquire critically, to discern truth from falsehood, and to exercise independence of thought. This intellectual empowerment is the basis for responsible action and the defense against manipulation or ignorance. Yet, Aristotle's conception of education is deeply social. He maintained that learning occurs not in isolation, but through engagement with teachers, mentors, and peers. The educational community provides the scaffolding necessary for growth, offering models of virtue and sources of emotional support. Dialogue, debate, and independent inquiry are thus essential components of the Aristotelian educational process. Aristotle also addressed the ethical dimension of education. He saw educators as stewards of character, responsible for guiding the young in the formation of habits and dispositions that will persist throughout life. The goal is not mere conformity, but the development of moral autonomy, the ability to choose the good, not because of external constraint, but from deeply ingrained conviction. In contemporary society, the relevance of Aristotle's educational philosophy is undiminished. The rapid pace of change, technological advancement, and cultural fragmentation all underscore the need for well-rounded, rational, and ethically grounded citizens. Education, in this light, becomes the chief instrument for human flourishing, equipping individuals with the faculties required to pursue the good life. Aristotle's vision invites us to extend our conception of education beyond mere utility, embracing its sacred role as the architect of virtue and happiness. The cultivation of wisdom, character, and civic responsibility through education remains our surest path to individual fulfillment and social harmony. Chapter 11. Politics and the Common Good. Aristotle's Vision of Society. Aristotle's view of politics is inextricably linked to his broader philosophy of human flourishing. He considered human beings as inherently social creatures, whose fulfillment depends upon participation in the life of the community. Politics, far from being a mere contest for power, is the highest expression of collective rationality and ethical purpose. Aristotle defined the polis, or city-state, as a natural and necessary institution. It arises not from arbitrary convention, but from the evolution of basic human associations, households, villages, and ultimately firmly organized civic entities. The polis exists for the sake of the good life, providing the conditions under which individuals can realize their potential and practice virtue. Fundamental to Aristotle's vision is the concept of the common good. He distinguished the ethical responsibilities of citizens from the narrow pursuit of self-interest. True politics strives for justice, equity, and harmony, crafting laws and practices that foster collective well-being. The virtuous citizen contributes actively to civic life, shaping the shared destiny of the community. Aristotle's classification of regimes, monarchy, aristocracy, and polity reflects his belief that political systems must be judged by their capacity to facilitate virtue and protect the common good. He criticized tyranny and oligarchy, which favor the few at the expense of the many, advocating instead for a balanced constitution in which power is shared and accountability ensured. The rule of law, he argued, must be anchored in reason, not arbitrary will. Participatory politics lies at the heart of Aristotle's ideal. He championed civic engagement, urging all citizens to deliberate, vote, and hold public office. This active involvement is not a burden, but a privilege and responsibility, fostering bonds of trust and solidarity. In turn, the community must provide educational opportunities and spaces for open dialogue, ensuring that political action is informed and virtuous. Aristotle's commitment to justice extends further to his philosophy of distributive and corrective equity. Distributive justice demands fair allocation of benefits and burdens, taking into account merit and need. Corrective justice, by contrast, aims to redress wrongs and restore balance within society. Both forms are indispensable in the maintenance of social cohesion. In his Ethics, Aristotle contended that individual virtue is incomplete without communal participation. Solitude limits our capacity for excellence. Only through interaction with others do we test our convictions, refine our understanding, and cultivate the dispositions necessary for harmonious coexistence. The health of the polis, therefore, is inseparable from the moral character of its citizens. Contemporary challenges, political polarization, inequality, and loss of civic trust underscore the urgent relevance of Aristotle's insights. His vision encourages us to transcend partisanship, seek common ground, and prioritize the collective good over factional interests. By reinvigorating civic virtue and restoring a commitment to reasoned deliberation, societies can address the complexities of modern life while remaining true to the ideals of justice and unity. Aristotle's philosophy of politics remains a powerful testament to the enduring quest for a just and flourishing world. His teachings inspire us to take seriously our obligations as citizens, to cherish the bonds of community, and to labor steadfastly in pursuit of the common good. Chapter 12: The Nature of the Soul. Understanding the Self. Aristotle's exploration of the soul forms a cornerstone of his philosophical inquiry into human nature. Distinct from mystical or purely spiritual understandings, Aristotle approached the soul as the animating principle of life, the foundation upon which rationality, emotion, and virtue are constructed. In his treatise De Anima, Aristotle delineates the soul into three aspects: the vegetative, the sensitive, and the rational. The vegetative soul governs growth, nourishment, and reproduction, functions shared by all living things. The sensitive soul is found in animals, enabling perception, movement, and desire. Uniquely human, the rational soul confers the capacity for thought, discernment, and ethical choice. Central to Aristotle's conception is the integration of reason and emotion. He rejected the strict dualism that divides body and soul, insisting instead that the two operate in dynamic harmony. The soul does not simply inhabit the body. It gives shape and purpose to biological functions, directing them toward flourishing. Emotion, in Aristotle's view, is not opposed to reason, but is shaped and refined by it. Understanding oneself, according to Aristotle, involves cultivating self-awareness, a conscious engagement with the forces that drive thought and action. The rational soul, when properly developed, enables us to reflect upon our desires, scrutinize our motives, and align our passions with the dictates of reason. This process forms the bedrock of ethical decision-making and personal growth. Aristotle placed great emphasis on the importance of habituation in shaping the soul. Through repeated action, individuals gradually internalize virtuous habits, transforming desires and impulses to conform to higher principles. The soul becomes progressively attuned to the demands of excellence, making virtuous action increasingly effortless and desirable. In the context of psychological health, Aristotle advocated for balance. Excess or deficiency in any aspect of the soul leads to dysfunction, whereas equilibrium between reason and emotion yields stability and fulfillment. This model informs his doctrine of the mean, wherein virtue is achieved by navigating the spectrum between extremes. Aristotle's philosophy of the soul also addresses the quest for identity and purpose. He regarded self-understanding as an ongoing project, the lifelong task of discerning one's strengths, weaknesses, and potential. This introspective labor is necessary for genuine self-improvement and for fulfilling one's role within the broader community. Contemporary psychology echoes many Aristotelian insights, recognizing the intricate interplay between cognition, affect, habits, and environment. Aristotle's approach offers a holistic view of selfhood, integrating biological, emotional, and intellectual dimensions in pursuit of balance and wholeness. In sum, Aristotle's inquiry into the nature of the soul provides a roadmap for self-knowledge and transformation. By embracing reason, cultivating virtue, and harmonizing the inner faculties, individuals can attain not only personal fulfillment, but also contribute meaningfully to the well-being of others. Chapter 13. Mastering Emotion, Reason over Impulse. Aristotle's understanding of the soul forms the cornerstone of his philosophy, illuminating the perennial struggle between emotion and reason. The human soul, as he conceived it, is divided between the rational and the irrational, the latter encompassing our basic desires, the former our deliberative faculties. For Aristotle, the hallmark of maturity and virtue is not the suppression or denial of emotion, but the artful harmonization of passions under the stewardship of reason. The dual nature of the soul, Aristotle's extensive analysis in the Nicomachean Ethics reveals. The soul is a battleground where impulse and rationality contend for primacy. The irrational aspect manifests as appetitive, seeking immediate gratification or responding reflexively to external stimuli. The rational aspect is deliberative, capable of reflection, judgment, and foresight. Virtue, in Aristotelian terms, arises where reason orchestrates the passions, so that every action is governed by purpose rather than caprice. Emotions, friend or foe. It is a mistake, Aristotle argues, to conceive of emotions as inherently antithetical to virtue. Emotions possess a dual character, serving as both catalysts for noble action and as potential agents of chaos. Anger, for instance, is not simply destructive. It can be just and motivating if properly directed. Courage, too, is defined not by the absence of fear, but by the rational management of it. Thus, emotional mastery is neither ascetic extinction nor indulgent surrender, but the measured application of reason to calibrate emotional response. Practical steps toward emotional mastery. How does the modern individual begin this journey of self-mastery? Aristotle prescribes a threefold approach. First, cultivate self-awareness. In contemporary terms, this might manifest as journaling, meditation, or honest philosophical discourse, all of which nurture a disciplined observation of emotional triggers and habitual reactions. Second, embrace the doctrine of the mean. Aristotle's insight that virtue lies in finding balance between extremes. Each emotion, from anger to compassion, must be expressed in the right measure, at the right time and toward the right object. Patience, for example, resides between the vices of irritability and apathy. Generosity between prodigality and miserliness. Third, practice deliberate deliberation. Before acting on an impulse, question its alignment with long-term values. Aristotle counsels asking oneself whether the action serves the virtuous ends of rational self-development. Through repeated application, the mind learns to prioritize reason over momentary passion. Real-world applications, the Aristotelian method is eminently practical. In the heat of conflict, pause to contextualize criticism instead of capitulating to resentment. In moments of disappointment, employ reason to reframe failure as a lesson rather than a personal tragedy. In relationships, distinguish transient emotion from deeper moral grievance, ensuring that responses are anchored in rational consideration rather than fleeting impulse. The virtuous cycles. Emotional mastery develops. A virtuous cycle emerges. Rational acts breed positive emotions. Harmonious emotions support sound judgment. The disciplined individual experiences growing self-respect, improved relationships, and a greater clarity of purpose. Emotional harmony, far from being merely desirable, becomes foundational. Contemporary challenges. Modern life is characterized by constant stimuli, designed to provoke impulsive reaction, whether through social media, advertising, or societal pressures. The Aristotelian imperative to master emotion is not a relic, but a pressing necessity. It equips the individual to resist manipulation, curb impulsivity, and foster inner serenity amid chaos. Chapter 14. The Scientist Within. Curiosity and Empirical Thinking. Aristotle's intellectual legacy as a pioneer of empirical investigation is as significant as his ethical inquiries. He rejected the Platonic preference for detached abstraction, insisting instead on the direct observation of the natural world. This scientific spirit, attentive to evidence and systematic reasoning, remains a vital model for contemporary rational inquiry. The love of knowledge, Aristotle opens his metaphysics with the insight. All men by nature desire to know. Curiosity, therefore, is not a trivial pastime, but an essential dimension of human existence. It motivates the quest for understanding, spurring the individual to ask questions, seek explanations, and embrace wonder. Method over madness, the empirical approach. Unlike speculative theorists, Aristotle placed a premium on empirical reality. He argued that true knowledge arises from careful observation, classification, and inductive reasoning. For the modern reader, this translates into a preference for data. Evidence and logical analysis over bias, dogma, and assumption are central to empirical thinking is the willingness to confront uncertainty, to revise previously held beliefs when confronted by contrary evidence. The Aristotelian scientist delights in new facts and is unmoved by the discomfort of intellectual recalibration. Curiosity as a virtue. For Aristotle, curiosity is no idle fancy. It must be tethered to purpose. Intellectual virtue, or phronesis, emerges when curiosity is disciplined, directed toward meaningful investigation rather than mere novelty. Aimless questioning results in confusion. Purposeful inquiry, sharpened by rational intent, yields enlightenment. The scientific method, observation to understanding. Aristotle anticipated many aspects of what later became the scientific method. He observed animal behavior, classified living phenomena, and sought causes behind material events. The cycle of observation, hypothesis, analysis, and conclusion underpins rational investigation. In daily life, this regime translates into thoughtful deliberation before decision-making, critical analysis of personal habits, and systematic testing of solutions to persistent problems. transformational power of inquiry, curiosity, shaped by reason, is the engine of innovation and progress. Every scientific breakthrough, technological advance, and artistic masterpiece is born from the marriage of disciplined wonder and empirical rigor. Self-inquiry, questioning one's motives, scrutinizing patterns of belief, fosters personal evolution and psychological resilience. Applying empirical thinking. Today, contemporary society struggles with information glut and cognitive bias. The Aristotelian antidote is a spirit of skepticism, open-mindedness, and relentless verification. One must engage diverse perspectives, rigorously test claims, and be prepared to alter convictions when confronted by new evidence. Growth through rigorous inquiry. Aristotle's example calls for lifelong learning, a disposition to treat every phenomenon as a subject of investigation. Intellectual humility, curiosity, and adaptability become defining traits of the rational person. Chapter 15, Habit and Discipline, the Road to Moral Excellence. Aristotle's conception of virtue is fundamentally pragmatic. It distinguishes itself from mere theoretical aspiration by rooting itself in the soil of habitual practice and disciplined action. Virtue, as Aristotle insists, is not inherent but cultivated, built brick by brick through repeated, intentional deeds, the architecture of virtue in the Nicomachean Ethics. Aristotle famously declares, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. Learning to play an instrument, mastering a sport, or achieving moral virtue follows the same path of disciplined repetition. Each choice, each small act of integrity forms the framework of character. Virtue is not a single event. It is the cumulative product of daily decisions, reinforced over time. The disciplined individual gradually embodies virtues such as honesty, courage, patience, and generosity, not from isolated acts, but from the steady rhythm of repeated behaviors. The role of deliberation discipline is not a blind routine. Aristotle emphasizes the necessity of deliberation, choosing voluntarily and acting with knowledge. Virtue arises only when actions are intentional, informed, and aligned with the good. Habit transforms intention into automaticity, but it must begin with clear-eyed reflection and self-direction. Building good habits. The cultivation of virtue commences with the identification of desired traits. Select one virtue, for instance, honesty, and practice it consistently in daily interactions. Over time, the act transforms from conscious effort to second nature. The resistance to opposing impulses is neutralized as the pattern solidifies. Breaking bad habits. Aristotle acknowledges the formidable challenge of overcoming ingrained vices. Self-examination is the starting point, illuminating habits that obstruct virtue. Replace detrimental routines with constructive alternatives. Transform impatience with mindfulness. Supplant laziness with purposeful engagement. This process requires conscious perseverance, self-compassion, and an unwavering commitment to improvement. Discipline as liberator. Modern sensibilities may equate discipline with restriction or loss of freedom. Aristotle offers a radical reappraisal. Discipline emancipates. It liberates the individual from the tyranny of ungoverned desires and external compulsions. The disciplined life is one in which reason governs, empowering autonomy and self-mastery, endurance of virtue. The journey toward virtue is lifelong, marked by progress and setbacks. Resilience, capacity to persist through difficulty, is itself a virtue. Through repeated effort, virtuous habits become ingrained, rendering goodness instinctive and spontaneous. Habits in the modern world contemporary environments are engineered for distraction, impulsivity, and vice. The Aristotelian challenge is to assert deliberate control. Establish boundaries, design intentional routines, and ritualize beneficial behaviors. Use modern technology as a tool for self-growth, not as a master of attention. discipline, the road to autonomy. In culmination, the disciplined pursuit of virtue produces an autonomous self, capable of wise decision-making, sustained excellence, and authentic fulfillment. Habit and discipline are not vestiges of hostility toward pleasure, but pathways to realizing the highest version of oneself. Chapter 16, The Power of Purpose, Living with Intent. Aristotle's notion of telos, the end or purpose toward which all things strive, pervades his philosophy and offers a vital key to personal fulfillment. Telos is not simply ambition or achievement, but the realization of intrinsic human potential, anchored in reason and virtue. To live with intent is to act in accordance with one's higher aims, moving persistently toward eudaimonia, the state of flourishing. Defining telos encompasses more than external success. It is the activation of latent capacities, the fulfillment of one's essence. Aristotle sees every human as possessing a unique potential to cultivate reason, embody virtue, and contribute meaningfully to the common good. Purpose, then, is not a static destination, but a dynamic alignment with one's best self, discovering personal purpose. The search for purpose begins in self-knowledge. What talents lie dormant? Which passions ignite enthusiasm? What spheres of life promise growth and contribution? Aristotle counsels deep reflection, urging the practitioner to assess strengths, interests, and opportunities to serve. Purpose is clarified not by abstract theorizing, but by honest self-inquiry and experiential engagement. Motivation of meaning, purpose grants power. When actions are suffused with meaning, motivation intensifies, resilience deepens, and persistence becomes natural rather than forced. The grind of daily effort, when tethered to meaningful ends, transforms from drudgery to fulfillment. Purpose as guiding star in turbulent times, purpose serves as a moral compass. For Aristotle, the highest good provides direction amid uncertainty, the standard by which all decisions are weighed. When one's telos is well defined, distractions lose their allure, values are safeguarded, and life acquires coherence. Living intentionally. Intentional living involves the conscious harmonization of short-term desires with long-term aspirations. Aristotle recommends routine reflection. Do my current actions advance my purpose or undermine it? This discipline preserves focus, prevents fragmentation, and cultivates integrity. Obstacles to purpose, contemporary culture tempts with consumerist excess, superficial validation, and relentless competition. Such pressures obscure authentic purpose, replacing it with ephemeral pursuits. Deliberate cultivation of inner values, personal vision, and autonomous direction is necessary to resist these distractions. Purpose in community. Purpose flourishes most brightly in community. Aristotle insists on our social nature, observing that genuine fulfillment arises through contribution to others. Individual telos is magnified when contextualized within collective well-being. Renewing purpose is not monolithic. Life's transitions, career changes, personal crises, new relationships may prompt re-evaluation. Aristotle encourages openness to transformation, viewing shifts in purpose as opportunities for deeper realization. Chapter 17, The Art of Rhetoric, Persuasion Through Logic and Virtue. Aristotle's treatise on rhetoric remains foundational to the study of persuasive communication. For Aristotle, rhetoric is neither mere manipulation nor empty flourishes. It is the ethical and logical art of persuading others through reasoned argument, trustworthy character, and empathetic resonance. Rhetoric. Aristotle defines rhetoric as the faculty of observing in any given case the available means of persuasion. It is both an art and a science, integrating logos, logical appeal, ethos, character of the speaker, and pathos, emotional connection with the audience. Logos, the logic of persuasion, the backbone of effective rhetoric, is logical argument. Aristotle's syllogisms, composed of premises and conclusions, demonstrate the power of structured reasoning. Persuasion demands clarity, evidence, coherence, and sound inference. A position must be defensible not by volume or force, but by rational substantiation. Ethos. Character as credibility for Aristotle. The speaker's character is as significant as the argument. Ethos encompasses honesty, integrity, benevolence, and competence, qualities that breed trust. Credibility cannot be artificially manufactured. It is the cumulative result of consistent virtue and ethical conduct. Pathos, the role of emotion. While reason provides substance, Aristotle does not ignore emotional appeal. Pathos, used judiciously, energizes rhetoric and strengthens the connection. The speaker must address the aspirations, anxieties, and values of the audience, not to manipulate, but to create empathetic resonance and mutual understanding. Rhetoric as a force for good. Aristotle is suspicious of sophistry, persuasion divorced from truth. The rhetorical artist is a steward of honest argumentation, using technique to illuminate reality rather than falsify it. Virtuous rhetoric aims at agreement based on shared reason and value, not at victory over ignorance. Mastering the medium. Contemporary communication occurs across multiple formats: written, spoken, digital, and visual. The Aristotelian rhetorician adapts classical principles to modern contexts, enhancing clarity, accessibility, and persuasiveness in all media. Persuasion in daily life. Rhetoric is not restricted to courtroom drama or political debate. Every interaction, whether negotiating, teaching, advising, or resolving conflict, is shaped by persuasive skill. Mastery of rhetoric empowers constructive dialogue, fosters cooperation, and diffuses moral confusion. Rhetorical practice. Aristotle advocates for continuous improvement. Study exemplary speeches and texts. Practice clear and logical argumentation. Seek feedback. Refine style and method. Rhetoric governed by logic and virtue becomes a skill for lifelong growth and positive influence. Chapter 18. Contemplation and the life of the mind. At the apex of the Aristotelian hierarchy is the contemplative life, theoria or intellectual activity pursued for its own sake. Aristotle regards this life as supremely virtuous, self-sufficient, and fundamental to human happiness. Contemplation, far from passive absorption, is the dynamic engagement of intellect with truth, beauty, and ultimate meaning. The value of contemplation. Contemplation represents the highest fulfillment of the rational faculty. Whereas practical wisdom concerns the management of daily affairs, contemplation apprehends the eternal, the nature of reality, the principles of goodness, and the mysteries of existence. Aristotle holds that the joy derived from contemplative engagement is deeper and more enduring than physical pleasure. The contemplative ideal. Aristotle describes the contemplative life as self-sufficient, requiring little from the world but the resources of the mind. This does not mandate withdrawal or asceticism. Rather, contemplation is best pursued in tandem with action, permeating all aspects of living: intellectual virtues, wisdom, understanding, prudence. These intellectual virtues are born from sustained study, dialogue, and reflection. Aristotle advises the cultivation of these virtues through active inquiry, questioning, and the fearless exploration of ideas. Mindfulness and modernity. Modern life, with its incessant pace and digital distraction, threatens the contemplative spirit. Yet the explosion of accessible information provides unprecedented opportunities for intellectual growth. Intentional pauses for reflection, through reading, discussion, meditation, or solitude, become increasingly vital. Philosophical meditation. Contemplation is enriched by philosophical meditation, structured inquiry into the nature of justice, happiness, reality, or the divine. This practice sharpens intellect, enlarges perspective, and cultivates depth. Creativity and innovation. Contemplation is not mere passive reception, but the fertile ground of creativity. Artistic expression, scientific hypothesis, and innovative thinking all spring from profound engagement with ideas. The contemplative mind is generative, not merely receptive, integrating. Contemplation with action. Aristotle rejects any dichotomy between reflection and engagement. Wise action arises from well-ordered thought. Thus, the balanced life is marked by reflection that informs conduct. The contemplative life is not to be sequestered from the practical. It is to suffuse and ennoble it. The gift of contemplation. The fruits of contemplation are intrinsic clarity, serenity, and a sense of unity with the cosmos. Master of the life of the mind, elevates the human being beyond mere survival, enabling connection with the deepest dimensions of existence. Chapter 19. Applying Aristotle today. Wisdom for the modern world. Aristotle's philosophy might have emerged in ancient Athens, yet its relevance is undimmed by the march of centuries. This chapter bridges his teachings with the pressing realities of our era, ethics in an age of complexity, the moral challenges of today, technological disruption, global conflict, climate emergency, require virtues attuned to new contexts. Aristotle's ethics, emphasizing balance, deliberation, and purpose, provide a flexible framework for ethical discernment. Rationality in public life. Modern societies are beset by propaganda, polarization, and demagoguery. The Aristotelian imperative to ground beliefs and policies in reasoned argument offers an antidote to manipulation and extremism. Education. Redefined, Aristotle stressed lifelong education, not rote memorization, but the cultivation of critical and creative faculties. In an age where knowledge expands exponentially, his model points toward adaptability, curiosity, and intellectual humility, technology and flourishing. The digital arena brings new temptations and distractions, yet it also amplifies our capacity for learning and connection. By employing Aristotelian principles, deliberate use, critical discernment, and virtuous intent, we can reap technology's benefits while minimizing its harms. Civic virtue and community. Aristotle saw citizenship as active engagement in the common good. In modern democracies, this necessitates informed participation, respectful debate, and service. The revival of civic virtue is indispensable for social cohesion and fulfillment. Work and creativity. Aristotle valued fulfilling work, activity aligned with one's talents and purpose. In today's world, where careers may shift and automation threatens meaning, the Aristotelian focus on vocation as self-actualization remains timely. Mental health and well-being. Aristotle's emphasis on balance, emotion and reason, work and rest, self and society, anticipates prevailing insights about mental health. Integrating these principles fosters resilience, serenity, and wholeness. Toward a rational society, applying Aristotle today does not demand nostalgia for antiquity, but the creative adaptation of timeless wisdom. The pursuit of rational flourishing, individually and collectively, is the task of our time. Chapter 20. Living rationally, becoming the best version of yourself. All preceding chapters converge in the aspiration to live rationally, to become, as Aristotle envisioned, the fullest and best version of oneself, the meaning of rational living. Rational living is not an emotionless existence, but the continual ordering of thought, desire, and action toward the good. It means integrating virtue into every aspect of life. Daily practices for rational growth, morning reflection, intentional goal setting, mindful observation, and evening self-examination are simple, profound rituals that foster self-mastery. The role of community. Personal rationality flourishes in supportive communities. Seek mentors, cultivate friendships based on virtue, and contribute to the common good. Lifelong learning as a way of life. The rational person is ever a student, curious, open, and adaptive. Nurture a hunger for knowledge, read widely, and engage diverse perspectives. Facing adversity with reason, hardship, failure, and change are inescapable. The rational mindset transforms each setback into an occasion for wisdom. Practice resilience, patience, and hope. Courage to change. Aristotle esteemed courage, not recklessness, but the strength to persevere in the pursuit of the good. To live rationally is to risk growth, embrace transformation, and overcome self-imposed limits. Celebrating progress, recognize incremental improvement. Each virtuous act, each rational decision builds toward excellence. The life well lived ultimately, to live rationally, is to approach each day as a new opportunity for virtue, knowledge, and joy. Aristotle's vision of eudaimonia lights the way, the full flowering of our potential, anchored in reason and actualized through noble action. Thus concludes the Aristotelian mind, harnessing ancient wisdom for rational living, a guide to weaving the golden threads of ancient philosophy into the vibrant tapestry of modern life. If you found this video helpful, inspiring, or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future content. Your support means the world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.